I fancy myself as a storyteller. I want to tell you a couple personal stories that will reflect why I believe that exposure to stereotypes will help negate any of the effects of a danger of a single story. Um, my father is Mexican and Apache, and my mother is Irish and German and a direct descendant of the McCoys from the Hatfields and McCoys. And I want to show you how sports, they got me into sports, and I think in a way to actually expose me to these different types of stereotypes. So I'll start with living in Highland. I live in Highland. When I grew up was majority white neighborhood. When I seen that Beavis and Butthead went to Highland High School, I wasn't surprised because I went to Highland Junior High, and it seemed like a lot of those same kids are the kids I went to school with. But that's not the single story of those kids in Highland. There's also like the Bart Simpsons, and there was the Cartmans, and there was the Lisa Simpsons, and there was the Dexter and his sister Dee Dee. There's all those types, so that's really not a single story about the white kids that I grew up with. But for the Hispanic kids, there wasn't all those cartoons. There wasn't a whole bunch of cartoons talking about how these different kids were. There wasn't any shows on TV like Dennis and Menace or anything like that. So it wasn't really clear how these Hispanic kids were, and I didn't grow up with these kids, right? So I think my dad thought it was pretty important to be more exposed than just seeing my cousins. I started playing after playing Little League in Highland till I was about 10. I no more like 12, and then I went and played in or 11, I think, and then I went and played in an all Catholic league. I was on the Lords, and that was an all Hispanic league. And then from there, I went to the Pony League that most of those kids fed into, which was in Conto, and that was in also in the hood. My little league on the Lords, we played at Nunez Park, which is in the hood in San Bernardino, and then also in Conto's right in the hood also. So I was pretty exposed to the hood, and then I seen that the stereotypes weren't real. I mean, well, some were real because there was houses that I went to, and there were guns on the table, and there was drugs in the air, and all that kind of stuff. But that wasn't. There was also athletes. There were some good athletes, real good athletes that lived a whole different life. Um, then I went to go play football in Rialto, which exposed me to more of the black kids. The black kids that I were there was a very many black kids in Highland, and then when I played in Encanto, there wasn't very many black kids in Encanto or at Nunez Park in San Bernardino playing youth Catholic league. So it was interesting because a lot of the single stories I heard about black people weren't really as prevalent as they said they were because I made a lot of good friends. I played on that team, and then after that, I went and played um, on a team in San Bernardino. It was majority black. There was only three Hispanics and one white kid on the team, and then I played on the Cobras. It was all black. Also, only the same kids were on that team too. So, but then when I got to high school, there was a more mix. There was a mixture of kids because I moved to El Centro, and El Centro was like border town. So a lot of Hispanics. I was exposed to the stereotypes of people in Mexico, and there was a lot of poor people in Mexico, but there was also rich people in Mexico. My next door neighbor's dad owned the Fed Mart over there, so there are rich people there too. So it's like the stereotypes of the poor people living in huts and all that stuff. Some of it was real, but it wasn't the whole story. That's the whole thing. These stereotypes and single stories, they want you to think it's the whole story, but it's not the whole story because there's all kinds of different types of people and all kinds of different they all act different no matter what color they are. It doesn't matter what color they are to make them who they are. And then also with karate, I took taekwondo, I took judo. I took judo with my dad for a year. There's a lot of Asians in that. And then I took taekwondo for like 2.5 years. A lot of Asians in that. And I didn't know very many Asians. That's why I met Asians was in karate and judo. So there too, I found that those stereotypes aren't. They ain't the whole story. They're part of it. When we went to little Tokyo, I seen some pretty interesting stuff. But if you don't go by the single story, you're gonna be a lot better off because people are people. What color they are doesn't really make a big difference, and how they raised makes influence them, but it doesn't isn't everything.